Hello, and welcome to 3 Minutes After Midnight. I'm your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt. Living in the state of Wisconsin, to my way of thinking, is very advantageous. And why do I use that word? Is because Wisconsin has a history of hauntings. From the Minnesota border to going north all the way up to the border of Marquette, Michigan, and in between. I could create videos all day long on hauntings of Wisconsin, and some of them are pretty fascinating. But I have taken just a few, which I feel are to my way of thinking, very interesting, and also because I also did the investigations back when. Some were done when I was going to the university, when I was going to University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Some when I was living out in a small town called Okachi, and so, like I said, and when I lived up in northern Wisconsin called Boulder Junction. So, like I said, advantageous to live in the state of Wisconsin. Now, a lot of people say is that, well, the state of Wyoming, the state of California has a lot of good hauntings. True, absolutely true. And a lot of them have been researched to death by ghost groups and organizations that have put their vids that were taken during their research on YouTube. Nothing wrong with that. I say the more that is put out on a particular haunting from a particular state, hey, the more that skeptic has to begin to believe is that yes, there is something besides when a person passes over, is that they're just worms, and that your body is just worms. I mean, it's just food. There we go. It's just food for the worms. All right. So, like I said, God love these people that do the investigations of going in and having lockdowns, like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters International or other such groups. Okay. What I don't like, are the fakes, frauds, and phonies, and I think that I mentioned this on one of my videos that's on opening the door to the unknown. And I'm not going to get into that, and I'm not going to dwell on that. But I do not like phonies and phony investigations that so-called perform. Uh, okay, that's all I'm saying about that. Okay. So, like I said, this morning I want to take you on a little journey to a small town in the state of Wisconsin called Nashotah. And we're going to stop at Nashotah House Theological Seminary. That was investigated by me back in 1972. Right after I got out, of the service. Okay, like I said, the place is Nashotah. We're going to go to Nashotah House Theological Seminary. I like to give you just a quick background of Nashotah, and also give you a little history of Nashotah House itself, and then I will actually get into the haunting. So if you give me just a moment to where I can switch this camera around, and I'm just learning this because my other one got shorted out, so you have to bear with me here. Isn't that neat to talk about doorways into different dimensional planes of existence. Yeah, there they are. Okay, let me see here. There we go. Okay, this is a map this is a map, as you can read, was from Google, and it shows you Nashotah, which is right here, and Nashotah House is right about there. Here's where I lived. It was called Okachi Lake, and this is Okachi Lake Bay Park, and my family lived right about there. Okay, um, Nashotah. I don't know what it is today. I haven't been back to Wisconsin in 20 some years. So when I left, it had not more than about I think about 10,000 people for a population. Like I said, that goes way back in the 60s when I lived. Was growing up on Okachi Lake, and so I have no idea what it is today. Okachi, what was my pointer here? Okachi to Nashotah is really about 2.5. Is about 2.5 miles, and if we go from Nashotah to if we go back on 16, if we go back to Highway 16 here, here is excuse me, here is Pewaukee Lake, where you have the town of Pewaukee, which is just this whole section, this whole section in here. And as we continue traveling down Highway 16, going in this direction, we will get into Waukesha, and from there, which is not less than 10 miles, is the county line for Milwaukee County. If we would take 16 going this way, you get to small towns like Summit, Upper and Lower Oconomowoc, and you keep going, and it could take you all. It could take you all the way to Madison, just like the old 41 down in Florida to take you to Detroit, Michigan. This in here was all dirt roads going back. Nashotah actually became, how should I say, I don't want to use, okay, I will say it was created as a village back in 1841. But before it became a village, there was still some small houses built up called called the Mission. As you can see here, you see here like Mission Road, which goes to Nashotah Road, which goes to Lakeland, the Lakeland Drive, going up to Nashotah. So Nashotah House was actually called the Mission. Again, this was still around 1841. Now, we also had fur trappers, small missionary groups that swung down, you might say, to administer to the village people who occupied Okachi, excuse me, Okachi Lake, again Pewaukee, and this was all open land, believe it or not. I mean, like people talked about, people can talk about again, like like Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, They can talk about some parts of California, but this was, but actually, you might say that this could be classified as the Old West in this whole section here, back in the 1700s, until you had the settlers start coming down into Wisconsin from the from the eastern states like Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Maine, and they moved into Milwaukee. They moved into Waukesha County, you might say, Nashotah, Oconomowoc, as has been mentioned, and three gentlemen named, give you their names in a minute, here we go. Three gentlemen named James Breck, William Adams, and John Holbert, who were deacons of the Protestant faith from South Carolina, traveled to Nashotah. And these were the people, and these were the three people that actually created Nashotah House Theological Seminary back in 1841. And in 1847 is when it became an official charter of the Protestant church. I'm trying to remember the name of the bishop. Let's see here if I can find his name real quick. Let's see here. I'm trying to find his name real quick because it is important. Anyways, I can't remember the bishop's name at this time. But anyways, he gave permission to the three young, you might say, students yet, to purchase land in this area right about here, as to build what they called was again the mission. Nashotah House became officially named back in 1847 when it became chartered with the Protestant, like I said, with the Protestant Church. Nashotah House has its own cemetery where there are missionaries that died there. Also teachers that taught there on the grounds itself, and the wives and children. So yes, it's a very large, and it's, believe it or not, it's a very large cemetery. Okay, I'm going to see here if I can change the picture and show you some of the original homes that were built. There's not too many of the originals left, by the way. Let's see here. I might have to go out this way. Oops. All right, that's all right. Ain't that pretty? Photos. There we go. Okay, we just have to kick in here. Okay, this is what I want to show you right here. These were two of the original homes that were built back in 1841 by the three settlers who bought by the three deacons who bought the property as to create Nashotah House Theological Seminary. This was classified as the meeting hall for church for the services, and this was where people, where some of the where they lived, and also I think if I remember rightly, also like a dining, like the kitchen dining room as well. So they could eat here, sleep up here, eat down here, walk out, boom, 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 go into the church here and service however the Protestants service their mass. Okay. See here if we can, like, oh, good, I can do it this way. No, 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 no. We'll be talking about these. Here is Here is the new home and chapel. Uh, um, Here's the chapel, and here again are the residence quarters right here, plus also the dining hall. Again, the dining hall, and just living quarters, you might say. Uh, okay. Let's see here. No, I don't want to go back there. I don't want that one. Don't want that one. That one I'll be talking about those later on. Okay. Here, as you can see, let me see if I can zoom here for you. There we go. Bishop Jackson. Here's the Bishop Jackson um, uh, Kempfer. All right, he was classified as the Pope of Wisconsin, and especially in Waukesha County, and he visited a lot at the seminary to give a mass or to also take time as to teach the seminary students. Okay, and here again you can see the original here from this painting. Here again is the living quarters right here, chapel, and again no, living quarters, resident dorms. There we go. The dorms, living quarters, and here's where again was the chapel where their mass was held. We have to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay. Nope. Gotta go back this way. Nope. Gotta go back this way. Instead of be talking about those. No, 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 no. I got about 1,000 pictures on in my albums here. I'm looking for. There he is. That's who I'm looking for. Hello. Zoom. Oops. Okay. John Manson Neal was a deacon that came from New York that also came to teach some of the seminary students back when, as to become missionaries, as to go out and administer the word of God. Again, to people that lived in Pewaukee at this time, people in Waukesha, Okauchee, Oconomowoc, Summit, Upper Oconomowoc, going all the way up to Madison and to the Minnesota and also into the Minnesota border. I don't know how far that they went. I don't know how far they went uh, going up northern Wisconsin. Um, but I imagine that a lot of them did travel. I do imagine that a lot of them did travel in that direction as well as missionaries, as to administer the gospel to, say, like the Lac du Flambeau Indian tribe, the Menominee Indian tribe, and other tribes that lived in the state, and who still do. All right. Let me see here. I want to get back here and also explain the reason why why these three deacons picked Nashotah as to create Nashotah House. As you can see here, you have Okachi Lake. I forget the name of this is a man-made lake. Here's Lake Pewaukee. I forget these lakes here and this one here. But Wisconsin is like Minnesota, like 10,000 lakes, and you could always get to one. Well, guess what? If you had a village like say Nashotah or Okachi or Pewaukee, is that where would you go try to get food? You go fishing, and Wisconsin has the best fishing lakes for panfish, muskie, uh, walleye, bass, and also if you wanted to eat like animal flesh, naturally you would get bear, deer, quail, turkey, and so food and water was abundant in this area, in this whole area here. And that's the reason why a lot of people from New England states traveled down and started to settle Pewaukee, Nashotah, Okachi, um, again Oconomowoc, Waukesha, even Milwaukee. Okay, so this was a history. So this is a little history on Nashotah and also on Nashotah House. Getting into the hauntings itself. There has been controversies throughout the many years about Nashotah House being haunted. Some of the student residents say that Nashotah House is not haunted. Some townspeople still insist that yes, Nashotah House is haunted by two spirits. One named um, one named David N. Pope, and the other was Israel Cole. Israel Cole was classified or considered a deacon, and David N. Pope was called the Black Monk. Now, here's where the controversy comes in about Pope, is that Nashotah House was became throughout the years a non-denominational residency for students, which means is you could have Lutherans, Catholics. I don't believe Jews from the Jewish faith, but the Methodists, again Protestant, because it was at the time a Protestant seminary. And I think today we're going back. Um, is that it has now become a Anglo-Catholic seminary. During the time of transition, is that Pope was a Anglo-Catholic from that sect of the church. And what happened is, now again, what happened is that Pope uh, was murdered by a I forget by the I'm trying to think. It might have been the bishop's wife or one of the deacon's wives, and I don't know. I mean, I have no idea the real reason why Pope was hung, but they did find. But they say is that some of the seminary students actually found the body hanging um, on the grounds. He was not buried in the cemetery. He was not buried in the Nashotah House Cemetery. He was buried outside the cemetery. And again, the so-called reason was that number one, he was a monk. Number two, he committed the ultimate sacrilege of adultery. And so he didn't have that purity as the purity as being buried in the cemetery itself. But again, here comes the controversy again with Pope, is that some people have said throughout the years is that he was not a monk, but he was a businessman that came from New York, and again had an affair with one of the deacon's wives. Now, because Nashotah House at that time was a missionary seminary, is that wayward travelers would be welcome to stay for the night, and the next morning they would continue where they were going. So Nashotah House was always open, again for the wayward traveler. Okay, see if I can go back this way. Oops, you got to bring this down. No, I want to go down. There we go. Come on. Darn it, I'm going to have to come down further. Okay, I think. Does that work? Uh-oh. Okay. Just having a little problems here. Okay, I'm going to have to, let me see. See if I can go back this way. There we go. Yay. Okay. Here is found the actual grave marking of they said, if you can even see the name, it says Daniel N. Pope, born November 30th, 1801, died August 7th, 1852. Okay. Here in Latin it says, may his soul rest in peace. So, and again, this marker, this grave marker is outside outside the cemetery, because he was not, again, with the controversy, him being a monk or being a businessman from New York. Okay, they still really don't. They tried to get a historian in here years ago and tried to give the skinny on this gentleman. But I do know, again, by talking to a lot of the townspeople in Nashotah, is that they said yes, is that people have seen an apparition of a person wearing the regalia of a monk with the black robes, walking in the yard or on the grounds itself. Uh, Never did get any pictures. Never did any EVPs because at that time, back in the 70s, if you wanted to get an EVP, you would have to take a big tape recorder. And as for camera, never did have one. Really, got this picture. After how should I say, after trying to think how I got this picture. Oh, yeah, now I remember how I got the picture. Is that when I was investigating the grounds, is that I asked one of the seminary students if they had a camera that I could use, and to take the picture, and if it was developed, I gave him my address where he could send me a copy from the pictures taken. Okay. That takes care of Daniel N. Pope. All right. Now, getting into Ezel Cole, who was actually, and there's no question about this, as a deacon of the church, and also a resident of Nashotah House, is that he, again, for some reason, couldn't find his grave. But I did get the history behind his story. Is that when he was buried, is that people said, again, the townspeople said, is that when they walked past Nashotah House, going wherever they were going, they could hear like somebody crying out, "Where's my chalice? Where's my chalice?" Now, doing some research about chalices and faith, is that the chalice was given to the newly ordained minister or priest whose family helped to buy the chalice, and as to use during their mass services. Okay. Sometimes is that when the person died, they would bequeath their chalice to another new ordained minister, or they would be buried with their chalice if they didn't have any family. Again, I couldn't really tell if Cole had a family, or if he or he wanted to be buried with his chalice, and that's one of the reasons why townspeople say is that they can hear him cry out, "Where's my chalice? Where's my chalice?" But I do know this, is that both of these people, Pope and Cole, do haunt the Nashotah House. They actually do haunt. I mean, like I said, there's just too many townspeople, that will say yes, they do. Yet you will have the seminary students say there's no such haunting. It's all, urban legend, you might say. And but anyways, it was investigated. I did find one of the markers, as you can see here, and like I said, talking to the townspeople. So I would have to say, 100% is that Nashotah House is haunted. Um, so um, I'm going to turn my little thingy around here. There we go. Okay. So, like I said, the history of a haunting is to me more fascinating than saying is that, hey, give the history and let's go in and do the investigation. Like I said, anybody can do the investigations, okay? But getting to the nitty gritty of why a place is actually haunted. And like I said, sometimes it's it's kind of neat. Uh, what I mean by that is by getting now with all the type of spirit boxes that are out there on the market, is that can capture an EVP and try to get a name. Um, if I would have gone back to Wisconsin after 24 years instead of living where I'm living now, I think is that I would have have gone back and tried to have captured an EVP and try to get the skinny on how if Pope was a monk or if he was actually a businessman from New York. Okay. So I hope that you enjoyed our little adventure this morning to Nashotah House, and I'm going to have at some point some surprises, yeah, which will be very interesting to tell you, and I will try to get another video up where we will actually be, well, I would try to get at least 2 or 3 videos up on the city of Milwaukee, and which is very fascinating because these stories have come from my dad personally and from 2 of my uncles when they were growing up, especially the haunting at Marquette University when my dad was going to school to become, when he was in medical school there, and and that's kind of interesting. Um, so um, I'm going to just say for right now, I'm going to try to get another video up here maybe later on this afternoon on one of the hauntings in Milwaukee, or maybe I might find something that's interesting. Like I said, you could go to any place in the state of Wisconsin, any small town uh, that will have a haunting somewhere, and maybe I'll try to stay within a 40-mile radius between Pewaukee, Waukesha, Pewaukee, Oconomowoc, Okauchee, Summit. Okay, so I will talk to you then when we will go on our next journey. So have a great day.